Hello, good evening, and welcome to the TNT Show. My name is John Drummond, and I'm your host for the next 60 minutes. And we've got another exciting 60 minutes for you in show 203. Tonight, we'll be talking in some detail about what's happening with a new independence group called Sail for Independence. And we've got all of the graphic details coming up soon with Chris Wilson, who is main man on the Sail for Independence group. And we'll be talking about that in some detail shortly. But I just want to, as I do most weeks, talk about how this has been a great day for British democracy. And this time it centres upon fishing and winter fuel payments. The Labour government flailing around. If it's possible for fishermen to flail, Starmer was flailing about selling off your assets, by the way. I mean, the fishing grounds in the UK are going to be opened up, particularly to French fishermen. I love French people. I think French people are a great idea. But I think any sharing of assets should be conducted on an equal basis. So, in other words, if I want to trade something with you, we sit down together, we have sovereign authority, each of us, and we agree upon a deal. What we don't do is sell somebody else's car as part of that deal and say, I'll tell you what, that guy owns it, but you know something, you don't have to care about him because I don't care about him, and we'll just flog his car anyway. I don't think that's a sustainable strategy. It has one major flaw, of course, which is that if the other guy ever does become free, then that deal is necessarily prejudiced. So it will be interesting to see how things work out in the future. I think the sad element to all of this is the rather flaccid response from the Scottish government, with people saying things like, oh, well, you know, it's very wrong what they did. We should have been consulted. I made vigorous representations and nobody responded to them. Okay, so what are you going to do? And if the answer is, then they're going to do it again and again and again until you're left with the square root of sod all. So this would be a great time for somebody in the Scottish government to stand up with a pair of cojones and say, you know something, this is the last time. This is the last time. If you guys are going to take the legal constraints and abuse them and placing moral considerations to one side, then we're entitled to do the same. And there's lots of government that relies upon moral and ethical requirements as it does upon the law. And there seems to be a particular fascination amongst the way things are done in Scotland about, well, if somebody has made a law and they've decided that that law should extend to us, then we're bound to obey it. You know, that's a very perverse way of looking at things, it seems to me, but I may be wrong. And if you believe otherwise, we'd love to have you on the programme. We'd love you to come on and say, you know, John Drummond was talking through a hole in the back of his head. The reality is that this is the case. He said exactly the opposite. He's a complete idiot. Come on, we'd love to hear from you. But until you do that and accept the challenge, we have to assume there is no challenge. And that's a very sad thing indeed. Anyway, enough of all that. Let's move on and talk about sailing. Everybody should like sailing. If you don't, our guest tonight will, I'm sure, enthusiasm you with the whole idea of sailing. So without any further ado, let's speak to Chris Wilson from Sail for Independence. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, John. I'm fine, thank you. Nice to be with you.
It's a great pleasure to have you. Tell us about Sail for Freedom. I've got Sail for Independence, but you've got Sail for Freedom. Is there a difference? What's the difference?
Well, basically what it is, John, is that Sail for Freedom, well, basically we're wanting our freedom of our independence back, basically. So we want, obviously, to make decisions that we obviously make here in Scotland for our own people, decided by our own parliament in this country. So what I mean by freedom is basically is independence in itself for us to become an independent state again. So again, the whole kind of idea that Sail for Freedom came about was an idea that just spun in my head. That, I mean, we've been doing various different kind of things within the movement, marches, and we've done the Chain for Freedom as well a couple of years ago. So I came up with the idea, obviously, the new Glen Sannox obviously was commissioned just recently that we could all go to Arran and obviously fly our salt tyres heading over to a beauty spot in the west of Scotland, and obviously have a gathering in the Isle of Arran.
Super. So how does it work then? If I want to go on Sail for Freedom, what do I have to do, Chris?
Right, so basically what it is, so we're meeting up on Saturday, so there's various different sailings. So the first one is at 10:35, leaving from Troon. So basically we'll all meet up at the ferry port. We obviously bring us all Scottish flag with you. We'll all go on the ferry, and basically what the plan is to do is to round the deckings of the upper decks of the actual ferry itself, is to get our flags out whilst we're crossing across to Arran. Basically just get as many pictures as we possibly can and upload that to various different kind of indie groups, and basically hopefully get the message across to politicians that look, there's a mass movement here within Scotland, although we might be doing different things within the movement, but there is certainly a high interest in getting independence for our country.
Okay, super. So somebody turns up at 10:30. What happens if they can't make 10:30? What happens if they're a little bit late?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they can't make the 10:30 one, there is a following crossing in the afternoon. So there's a lunchtime sailing as well. I believe that's 1:30, but I will be putting up, there is information on the Facebook page, Sail for Freedom Facebook page. And that gives obviously an idea of how many crossings there is going that day. The last boat coming back is at 5:20, so it's at 17:20. So that's the last sailing coming back to the mainland. I mean, obviously people are more than welcome to stay in the island itself. I'm sure some people will be doing that. But again, so you've got the 1:30, and I believe there's a 3:30 boat sailing as well. But again, I will upload more information as well. There's already information been uploaded on there in regards to the times itself. So
Yeah.
it's the same idea roughly, John, that we just fly the flags over and we all meet up in the Isle of Arran.
Great. It sounds marvellous fun. And when is this happening? Which day?
Yep, so it's this Saturday, Saturday the 24th
Okay.
of May. So it is. So yep, it's not long to go. So yes, it's basically in the next few days' time, we'll all meet down at Troon.
Good. And what's the weather forecast for Saturday?
Well, as you probably know as much as me, John, being Scotland, well, you have 4 seasons in the one day. So basically, yeah, it's to rain at the moment, but I'm holding out hopefully for a rays of sunshine as soon as we go on the boat. So
That's what I like to hear.
yeah, yeah,
The key to life is PMA, positive mental attitude.
that's it. Absolutely. Yep,
If you
you've got
come
it.
with that, you'll conquer anything. So
Yeah.
it's set for Saturday. The first sailing's at 10:30. How long does the sailing last? Remind me.
So the sailing usually from Ardrossan, because that was the port that it went from before, so it was usually 55 minutes to an hour, but I do believe obviously the crossing is quite longer, so it's just a bit slightly over an hour's
Excellent.
crossing from Troon to Brodick. Yep.
Super. And your feeling is that if people bring flags, they can bedeck the decks with
Yeah,
flags.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any arrangements, for example, to take photographs from the land, or as the
Yes.
boat leaves and it comes in, or do you also perhaps have somebody who's sailing out there who can take a photograph of the vehicle with all the flags and stuff?
Right, so the idea really is that when we go across in the first sailing, basically is that we will be there for the next sailing ship coming in, the next
Yeah,
ferry obviously going across. So that's the idea where we'll meet them, obviously at Brodick, coming off of that ferry time. So we'll be able to take a lot of snapshots, hopefully from different various angles within the Brodick port of the ships coming in. So it means you can see, hopefully you see a rays of saltire flags as the boat's coming in itself, and then
excellent,
obviously having some photographs taken in the port as well, with us waiting for our fellow yesers to come off the Arran ferry.
excellent. And if it were possible to live stream the crossings or one of the crossings, would that be a possibility?
Absolutely. So, yep. So my plan is to be live streaming it throughout the crossing from 10:30 until we get to Arran. So, yep, that will be going ahead. Certainly be looking into that as well. So that gives people obviously that can't make it do understand, obviously, there's people from various parts of the country that due to certain situations they can't make it, so it gives them the opportunity to watch it and be there in spirit as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess you would really want to encourage people to actually go
Yeah,
and participate, because
absolutely.
that's what makes the difference amongst the observers, you know. So you're not
Yeah.
actually taking over the ferry itself, but you'll be there hopefully en masse to make a statement.
Absolutely, and that is what the statement is. As I said, it's various. Well, we've got different things that we do within the movement. Obviously, I mean, obviously going to the marches. Sorry, excuse me,
Yeah,
in Glasgow, Edinburgh, across the country, and it's just something a wee bit different. So it's just kind of and as well as going to the Isle of Arran as well. There's not many times that the movement gets to go to places like that, because it's all kind of centralised between the major cities within the
yeah.
country. So it gives people, as I say, an opportunity to certainly join in Arran as well.
Now I used to live there in that neck of the woods at Largs, and we
Lovely.
were always trying to encourage people to come and
Yep,
go to, from Largs to Millport,
yep,
across to Rothsay, etc., etc.
yep,
And it was, it would seem to me that if you can uh, tap into the enthusiasm in Brodick and other places,
yep.
then you might have a multiplier effect.
Absolutely, and as I said, that's the plan, and it gets more people engaged in that part of the world, especially down there. I mean, there's a lot of kind of groups, as I said, that basically we all just kind of meet up in the inner cities and stuff. So it gives them a chance to obviously go to their area and get them more involved as well. So it's kind of, and it's shown off a beautiful Scottish island, which the Isle of Arran
Absolutely.
is. Yeah,
I couldn't
and
agree more.
yeah,
Thomas Art MacArthur has been in touch to say, look, I wrote a song
he did.
called Feel. You know this song, do you?
I do indeed.
Right?
Yes, I do. Yep, I
Super.
do.
Well, something, it sounds to me like you've got a really good package of stuff going there. I mean, here you are, you're offering people the opportunity to go across to a beautiful island. It's not a far too brief sailing as some of them are. You just
Yeah,
step on board and all of a sudden you're there and you think, well, that was not too much. You got a full hour, you got a chance to meet with other folks of a similar disposition, you got
absolutely.
a chance to chat, you got a chance that you might even be on live stream. And then once you get to Arran, what arrangements are there for people who get off the boat at Arran?
So realistically, what it is that it's basically, so the Sail for Freedom part of it is the kind of statement of the actual Sail for Freedom. So that's basically with the flags basically saying, look, we want independence and we're willing to cross land and sea for us, right, people right across the whole country. Or, as I said, we're looking to, in a vast way, look to get independence in a democratic way. But what the message is, as I say, is the actual sailing itself. But once people get to the island itself, then it gives people, as I say, a chance to meet up that necessarily haven't met up with other parts of the movement before. They
Yeah,
can go for some refreshments, meet up on the beach. There's lovely beaches in Arran, lovely cafes and stuff. So
yeah,
basically, it's just a kind of day out as well when we get there, after the actual statement's been done itself. So it just gives everybody a chance to kind of catch up with each other as well. So, and have a wee bit of a get together.
yeah. That's great. That's super. And somebody's asking if you're planning to have any drone footage.
Well, see, the thing is, I haven't spoken to someone in regards to that, but if someone, I would need to look into the actual aspect of if that can go ahead, whether it would interfere with the boat itself. But I mean, if it's, I get the green light and the go ahead that can happen, then if people want to bring a drone, then the more the merrier. Absolutely. I mean, that would be fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. So you've organised this. You've come up with a dedicated song. You're plugging into what's happening in Arran. I think this
Yep.
is a terrific idea. I mean, all the time I worked in North Ayrshire, there was always a concern amongst islanders that they were sort of taken for granted a little bit,
Yep.
and people in the mainland didn't really quite appreciate what island life is like. It's ups and it's downs and stuff like that.
Yep.
Stuff like that. So here you've got an opportunity to publicise that, which is fantastic. I mean, it really is
Yeah.
great. I
Yep.
commend you for thinking about this, because it sounds really fantastic. Now, if you were to say, how would you decide at the end of the day if it had been a success or not?
Well, that's a success really is the amount of people that do turn up, as I said, and again we do get a good turnout. I mean, it's all down to turnout, of course. So I mean, but it's the same with kind of all the major events in that as well. So hopefully, if we get a fair amount of decent numbers to go, and then obviously we'll get the amount of flags. I just want to see a wave of saltire flags.
Yeah.
Round the ship. I mean, that would really be a sight to see. So again, that really would be a success to myself. What an unsuccessful day would be is maybe if just one or two people show up, but I don't expect that to happen, of course. So I mean, hopefully there'll be quite a good turnout, and especially with lots of more people coming in the next sailing, for example,
Yeah.
as well, so that we get an idea of get great pictures and footage and stuff like that, to upload that to various different other indie groups and movements across the board.
That's a terrific idea. Do you have any people coming from the government?
Well, I was in contact with, I am friends with, with an ex-politician as well, that she was not able to make it in this occasion, but I have contacted Kenneth Gibson's office to see if Kenneth Gibson can make it, so I am waiting on a response back from that. So again, they are more than welcome. As I said, I will certainly keep trying, and if they can make it, then fantastic. They're more than welcome to join.
Well, let me try and help you out a little bit here tonight. I would say to everybody in the professional political arena, this is your chance, right? There'll be elections coming up soon. This is not an opportunity to be scorned. Where you've got a whole bunch of independent supporters getting together and having a great day out. You could join them. You could show your support. You could say, we're with you. And furthermore, you're going to meet a lot of people who might well end up voting for you. So if you're MSP, for example, in Ayrshire or nearby, I would strongly suggest you get along there. I don't know what else you've got planned for the weekend, but maybe you should perhaps move it a little bit aside and go and support people like Chris and his mates and listen to the song. You might find out A, you like Chris, B, you like sailing, and C, you like the song, and D, you like the people who are on the boat, and you would encourage them to vote for you when the time comes. And also, it's going to be very important when the time comes and everyone's looking for votes that you've got people who are enthusiastic and prepared to go along there on these cold, wet nights to chap the doors and get the vote out for you. So why don't you reciprocate? Support people like Chris. These are the sort of initiatives I would suggest that are utterly commendable. There's no downside to this if you're a politician to support Chris. I mean, come on, So that's my plea for people to support you, Chris, because I think you deserve it. Because it's so easy to sit down and say, well, it's not all working out the way we'd like. There's nothing can be done about it. You're the very opposite of that. You've said it's not about sitting down and waiting for somebody else to do something. I'm going to
Yeah.
do something. And that's what's so commendable about it.
Absolutely, John, and thank you very much for saying that. As I said, the main, I mean, it's no, the cause is obviously, it's not about just the one person, it's about the bigger cause. It's about obviously leading this country forward for a better future for all of our people. And I mean, obviously, we have to, as one collective movement, try and push this forward somehow. I mean, if we all sit down and obviously just stare into space and we're not going to get anywhere, we have to work and do this together. So, as I said, in any way that we can, I can make a small contribution along with everybody else. That's, I mean, there have been meetings with other people that have helped along with this as well. Is certainly going to help the movement.
Well, somebody has pointed out that SNP activists, for example, were busy canvassing for the upcoming by-election, and of course that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe the way to look at this is to say, if you're one of the candidates, one of the prime movers, is to say, look, if you can put in an extra couple of hours, we'll arrange for you to go to Arran. So you treat it like a prize. You say, hey, this is not, there's no downside to this. You're going with other indie supporters. You might be able to enlist them as well. So be creative, I would say. You don't all have to be knocking on the doors at exactly the same time. I mean, people get fed up anyway on a Saturday with too many folks turning up at the door. They've got busy lives, etc. So maybe you sort of give it a rest and say, why don't you get across to Arran and then restart again on the Monday? It's not a big deal. Be creative, guys.
Absolutely.
So, when you look at the political scene across Scotland just now, what's your take?
Oh, well, a political situation across the board at the moment. I mean, I'm very, very worried about this massive surge of the Reform Party coming, I mean, chasing up Labour's tail at the moment. I mean, I think it's just a complete and utter shambles and a disaster where we are, especially within the wider context of UK politics. I think the way that Scotland has been treated is an absolute shambles. I think that the EU situation yesterday, to just make one point in particular, with as you explained at the beginning, John, with the fishermen and that kind of side of it, I think it's just absolutely just ridiculous in the way that it's came across, that we've had no say in Scotland or the Scottish Government being consulted and at least having a say within anything that happens within those negotiations. I think that where we are at the moment is a country, and unfortunately we didn't vote for Brexit as a nation as a whole, but we are stuck where we are, and we seem to be stuck in limbo at the moment. So I think right across the board it's a very depressing picture. I'm just thankful to the devolved government that we have, obviously in Scotland, mitigating as much as they can. But again, it's mitigating as much as they can. We can't obviously keep on doing that forever. So it's very depressing at the moment, John, in my eyes, especially with what's happening in London.
Yeah, were you surprised?
Not at all. Absolutely not. No. As I said, that's just it's basically do as you're told and sit down in the corner and say nothing about it. As I said, and that's why we have amazing people within the movement that are not going to do that. Absolutely not. But no, I'm not surprised one bit, John. As I said, the way that we're treated is absolutely shocking. I mean, we just seem to be this. I mean, our assets, for example. I mean, when things go bad, they're just using Scotland as the place where they're strapped for cash to obviously have a cash injection and just milk us dry. That just seems to be the way it is. So yeah, I feel used as a Scot, John. I'm sure other people do. It's just unacceptable.
Somebody once said that nobody can make you feel bad, only you can make you feel bad.
Yeah.
But what doesn't help is this, it seems to me anyway, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong here, that if you get abused time after time and your only response is to say, stop doing it, then all you do is invite further abuse. Because the abuser looks to see what power you have.
Yeah.
And if they figure out you have none, then depending on their nature, then they're likely to come back to you again and again with further abuse, because they know at the end of the day, all you're going to say is, please stop.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that's an awfully flaccid response to somebody who's butchering one of your major industries. Please stop. Or, I deplore. What the hell does that mean? I deplore. Well, I deplore the rain all the time, but what the hell? I mean, it's like, it just strikes people outside Scotland as a very weak response. And governments have enormous power if they care to establish what it is, and flex the muscles a little bit. It seems to me this business of simply sitting there like a bump on a log saying, I will not be abused, only to be abused another time. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, I can't see any way it would ever stop, because that's the way bullies are. I mean, bullies don't stop unless you say to them, the next time you do that, there's going to be real trouble. But simply saying, the next time you do that, I'm going to say I deplore it again.
Yeah. Absolutely, John. Everything you've said there, I certainly would not disagree with that at all. No, you're absolutely correct. And as I say, it's like that. This is why, as I say, we want our government to get the message through, especially here in Scotland, by doing things like Sail for Freedom and other kind of events like that as well. That we want them to stand up and listen. Look, things cannot get any worse than what they are at the moment. So we're looking to our government, who we elected in 2021, just to get us out of this mess as well. So I mean, we need to tell them, look, this is unacceptable. And as I said, so with other kind of movements and stuff that are happening right across the board, hopefully get that message collectively to say, look, we need to get something done here.
Yeah. I think people are asking, what am I suggesting? All I'm suggesting is that rather than sit there and say, I deplore, you actually say, next time you do that, I'm not going to do the following for you.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, politics is about moral choices. And if your moral choice is to say, I wish to be abused, That is not a sound moral choice, right? Everyone has some degree of freedom of action. And if you care not to use that freedom of action, then you can't blame the other guy for saying that you're a wet blanket and you won't amount to anything. That's what people think. I mean, the reality is that people don't care. I mean, I spent a long time in the south of England. It wasn't that people were anti-Scottish, not a bit of it. They just didn't care.
Yeah,
And you only care because somebody has said this is the reason why you should care. And if you don't make that case, then why should they care? People have got lots of other things on their minds all the time, you know. So in other words, you have to have a presence and you have to have something that actually does something concrete, not just I deplore. Imagine if
absolutely.
George Washington had said, I deplore the way you're charging us extra for tea. What if Gandhi had said, I deplore the fact you're putting on a salt tax, both of which were entirely legal, by the way.
Yeah.
So having recourse to legality and saying, oh, but these are legal actions. Well, so was the salt tax. It was a legal act.
Mm-hmm.
So was putting tax on tea to support the East India Company. That was a legal
Yeah.
act. The people who refused to accept it were acting illegally. But look where they are now.
Absolutely, as I said, and that's yeah, again, very valid point, John. As I said, this is why we need to stand up and just say, look, enough is enough, and we need to get this moving forward. As I say, people are fed up with the cost of living crisis, with various different things that are happening in our name as well, right across the world with certain conflicts. So we have to really get this sorted out because we cannot continue on the way that we've been continuing. It's just absolutely unacceptable.
You mentioned across the world. Let's have a chat about across the world.
Yep.
What's your take on Trump?
Uh, um, well, what's the one way I could put this? Idiot.
But do you realise what you're saying? Let
Yes.
me let me posit a counter fact to you.
Yep.
Uh, Idiot he may be,
Yep.
but he was voted by the majority of Americans during an election. They
Yep.
voted for him to be president.
Yep.
Furthermore,
Yep.
furthermore, 70 million Americans voted for him.
Yep.
So who are you, or for that me, to disparage him?
Well, absolutely, and again, that's a fair point. Yep, the American people in a fair election did vote for him. I said if I was American, he certainly wouldn't have been my number one choice. I think that he can be very divisive. I think that the way that he comes across and his mannerisms is very dangerous. I think that the way that he spoke to President Zelensky, I thought was absolutely just inexcusable. The way that he dealt with that. So yeah, and I mean idiot in the context that I think that when he comes out with just various different like phrases at times, and then he changes his mind at one thing, and it just upsets the apple cart, if I could say that. I'm not
Yeah,
saying he's obviously a clever man at certain things that he does do, but I think that the way he does business, I think the way he does politics, I think is just shameful, and I think that what his attitude to other countries, certainly around the world at the moment as well, with his tariffs, especially what he's doing to Canada, his next door neighbours, I think it's just absolutely atrocious.
let me chuck in a few facts here,
Yep,
because lots of people who come on the show are confused by popular support for Donald Trump.
yep,
Let me read you a few statements from a book published by a woman who just left Facebook, Sarah Wynne Williams. She's a New Zealander. And she said that Facebook embedded experts in the Trump campaign. This is the first one. And they put together something called Project Alamo. And Project Alamo had, listen to this, 220 million profiles in the US.
my
The total
goodness.
population of the United States is 250 million or just over.
Yep, yep,
So they had profiles on every single American, just about, right? Uh, it was run by a guy from the Trump team with the full support of Facebook. And this is some of the things that they did. They ran a strategy of pairing, targeting with data from their message testing. So people likely to respond to build a wall got that sort of message. Mums worried about childcare got ads explaining that Trump wanted 100% tax deductible childcare. And then there was a whole operation to constantly tweak the copy and the images and the color of the buttons that said donate. And listen to this. Many of the ads contained inflammatory misinformation that drove up the engagement. By driving up the engagement, they drove down the price of advertising and its tools, and the in-house white glove service, i.e. a very cooperative service, created incredibly accurate targeting for both message and audience, which is the holy grail of advertising.
Yep.
Listen to this. Trump outspent Clinton on the first campaign in Facebook ads. In the weeks before the election, the Trump campaign was regularly one of the top advertisers on Facebook globally. His campaign could afford to do this. Listen to this. Because their targeting raised millions of dollars. So they used the techniques to actually generate cash.
Yep.
As if that weren't crazy enough, listen to this. The team also ran voter suppression campaigns. Think about the no campaign in the 2014 referendum, and think about the consequences if this is allowed to happen in any future referendum in Scotland. The team ran voter suppression campaigns. They were targeted at 3 different groups of Democrats. Now, take out Democrats and put in SNP supporters.
Yep.
And listen to this. Young women, white liberals who might like Bernie Sanders, and black voters. These voters got so-called dark posts. In other words, these were non-public posts that only they could see. They'd be invisible to researchers or anyone else looking at their feed. Think of the power of the technology.
Crazy.
And the idea was to feed them stuff to discourage them from voting for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And at the end, all it needs is a small number of voters in key areas, and these things really matter. So what you get a sense of there, and I hope to goodness the Scottish Government has got somebody on board who can read a book and look at some of these abuses and say, how would we be able to deal with this? Because you must have the same feeling as I do, but let me just check. My feeling is there's a lot more independent supporters than there are voters. If our suspicions are accurate, there has to be an explanation as to why people who enthusiastically support independence don't turn out to vote. Now, the conventional logic is because they don't like John Swinney, or they don't like some of the SNP politicians, or they think that what they're offering is a bit sort of wet. Well, all of these things could be true, but what if there's another cause? And the other cause is that the social media is being manipulated so that SNP supporters are not motivated. So maybe this by-election will be a test of sorts. But I do hope, as I said before, that somebody somewhere has actually picked up this book and read it, because it's eye-opening stuff. Until you read this, you don't realize how easily manipulated we all are.
Absolutely. No, again, it's frightening. It's frightening stuff. So it is, as you say. As I said, and a lot of things in regards to that. I mean, I've memories back to throughout history. I mean, like the 1930s and stuff. I mean, that's just absolutely unbelievable, the way that the people were kind of bullied into voting one way or the other. As I said, it's in regards to Trump himself. As I said, that just seems to be the sort of kind of individual that he is. But I mean, it's in regards to the no side of it as well. We had that. I mean, back in 2014, I remember. Obviously, as an activist, the way that campaign was run. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying there were scuffles on both sides, but I mean, the no side ran a very, very dirty campaign. I mean, there was no doubt about it. I mean, they really did. I mean, a lot of scaremongering and a lot of dirty tactics involved in that. So I hope that isn't going to be the future, as I said. But we live in a very dangerous world, and nothing really surprises me in regards to that either.
Well, see, Jock is making the point that I'm alluding to, but not agreeing with. it's not because they don't trust John Swinney. He's saying the trust of the whole political industry has been lost. That's the line that's being pursued in the public prints. But it may not be the case. In other words, it is possible to judge your questions in surveys, perhaps to overemphasize that point. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, by the way. I'm saying I categorically agree with the point that people are pissed off with some of the lack of political judgment and the lack of political clout as they perceive it. But there may be other darker forces at work that we might want to think about from time to time. And at least we should do some checking. Right? And anyone's ever watched how social media operates with hundreds and hundreds of people in sweatshops, electronic sweatshops in Southeast Asia, propositioning people to try and persuade them to send them money. I mean, you look at that effort being deployed to persuade people not to go to the polling station. It's formidable. And remember, you're only talking here in Scotland about, you're in the millions of voters. You're not talking about tens of millions like you are in the United States. So it's entirely practical, it seems to me. Certainly the Facebook book would indicate this, to reach out to every single one of those with a particular message. So in other words, if somebody can say to you through social media, I think John Drummond is the best thing that ever happened. And your neighbour gets one that says, I saw John Drummond is the worst thing that ever happened. I encourage you both to vote for a third party, the same third party. I mean, it's just mind-boggling if you think of it in those terms. But you've seen perhaps the overtures that some people in the independence movement are making to the United Nations as a means of dealing with the continued, and I suspect, continue refusal to have a referendum by Westminster. Certainly it's what they would do, if I were in their shoes. I mean, why would I concede such a thing? It's absolutely nuts. And open up a back door to, I just wouldn't entertain it, frankly, if I were in their position, and particularly if I felt the other person was entirely powerless to bring it about. So what do you think of this idea of going to the United Nations?
Well, the idea, the whole aspect of the UN, as I said, I fully support what the rest of the guys are doing in regards to setting that off. I mean, it takes a long time for that process to take its place. I think personally, I mean, obviously that the UK and Britain, I mean, not a lot of people are taught by this actually, that some people think that the United Kingdom is actually a country. It's not, it's a state. There is no such country that's ever existed. As I said, I think that a lot of what's happened with the treaty that binds the two countries together under the Union, I think has been broken many times. And I think that we should have an answer. We should have a place at the UN fighting our case, and I think that we should have a case to answer, because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we're told one thing that we can't do another thing. We're bullied into this, and then we can't have a say in another thing. So I think that in regards to the UN situation, I don't know really what the outcome will be from that, but I think that we've got a good a shot as anything else, because it does state to my knowledge within the UN that any nation that seeks self-determination should have the right to do so.
I mean, that's an interesting possibility. I have friends who tell me it's all nonsense and it's just an embarrassment and it will go nowhere. They could be right. I want to show you something.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
I think it's ridiculous, and it doesn't certainly represent any of my values. And I think that the majority of Scots, I think that really would not relate to that in any shape or form. I mean, so I'll give you an example. The first one.
Whose poster is it, do you think?
I would say it's definitely Reform.
It could have been written by the Labour Party.
Yeah, well, even so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's good point, John. There's certainly no difference between the two of them at all in regards to that. So yeah, it could be National Front. Yeah.
If I move this up, and I was to show that to people who are being canvassed right now, right, they're being told the same things, and I would stop immigration, right, reject the common market, restore law and order, Fight communism. Well, you could have to change that to Corbyn. But this one down here, it's classic. It is classic. It's strengthen our armed forces. Every day, I pick up a paper and somebody's banging on about let's spend more on armaments, not just for ourselves, but and they've also cut overseas aid. So, if somebody was in the National Front way back when,
yeah,
their entire programme has been copied by the Labour Party.
It's ridiculous, John. I mean, look at Scotland, for example. I mean, we're a nation that, for example, for whatever reason, I don't know why, because we've got a really stunning, beautiful nation, but for some reason, our population is depopulation is getting less and less. So, in regards to immigration, I mean, certainly for someone my age, when I got older, I mean, we're looking at a situation here that can be quite catastrophic in regards to a lot of the industries that we need. So, I mean, we need more people from around the world coming into Scotland, as I said, and the majority of people that do come into this country contribute into this country and do a very good job of it as well. So we shouldn't be demonising them. We should be welcoming these people for the impact that they do.
Right. So what do you think of this one?
Defend migrants' rights, absolutely. As I said, in my opinion, I think that they're human beings. I think that, as I say, they should be treated with respect, the same as every other human being as well. I think that
Can you see the signature on the bottom?
Yeah.
Whose signature is that?
That is Nicola Sturgeon.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Is it John Swinney?
No.
No.
I'll take it a bit closer so you can see it.
No.
Can you see it?
Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So all the things that you believe in, he used to believe in.
Absolutely.
Before he started to believe in this.
Yeah. He's a hypocrite, John. He's a hypocrite. Yeah.
There was a straw in the wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you recognise this one?
I do.
So I've got a lot of Labour friends who say, yeah, he's forced into doing it, John. There's a thing called the Red Wall, and you don't understand it because you don't live in the north of England. He has to look as if he's part of the far right in order to staunch Labour votes heading towards reform.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that logic?
I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very, very, very dangerous. I think that, I mean, when he kind of brought out the phrase that Enoch Powell used the last week, I think that first of all, whoever actually allowed him within his own kind of centre group to actually come out and make that statement, I think that, well, I think they should be gone with immediate effect. I mean, I think that where we are, as I said, in regards to the U-turns that he's made in appealing to that group, I think that we're in for very, very dangerous times. I mean, the man is a complete hypocrite. And I think personally, John, I think that the man would do anything to keep himself within power. I mean, just look at what he's done as well for another example, and I see that he's now U-turned in that. I've seen that today in regards to taking the money off of the pensioners. Another ridiculous and sick thing, as far as I'm concerned, to do to people that's paid into the system all their days. I just think that it's very, very dangerous in the path that he's gone down and trying to align himself with reform and that kind of politics and fascism that it is.
Do you think it will work?
I don't think it will work for Keir Starmer. No, I don't think it will. But what I don't want, what I do have the fear of, I think that if that's the way that he's aligning himself with, I think that that's just dancing to the tune along with Nigel Farage. So I think that where it could backfire, especially on Labour, I think that it might get people, especially south of the border, thinking, well, do you know what? If that's the way that Labour's valuing themselves with, then what's the point? We can just vote for Nigel Farage and then that because that's the way that Labour seems to be. So I think that he could have a lot of people following him, and I think that would actually change their views into that sort of ideological outlook of it, which I think is just absolutely crazy. And I think that it's very, very dangerous.
I mean, my Labour friends tell me I've got this entirely wrong. They tell me that, as I explained earlier, he has to do this.
Yep.
Because he's hemorrhaging votes in the north of England, and they say, look at the recent by-elections, Labour
Yep.
Party vote has collapsed,
Yep.
and therefore the way you fix that, they tell me, is that if the people want to go right, you try and outpace them to the right.
Yep.
And when I say I'm not convinced of that logic, how does that work? Surely we all end up on the far right.
Mhm.
Oh no, the Tories won't go there. I said, really? The Tories won't go to the right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
could have a situation in a few months' time where every single main UK political party, apart from one or two exceptions, is on the far right.
Yep.
Even though their labels might suggest that they're not quite as far as that. Anyway, enough
Absolutely.
of that. What do you think of the fact that the Labour MP at the upcoming by-election that you mentioned earlier doesn't want to appear on television to argue his case?
I think it's a disgrace to democracy. I think, well, what's he scared of? I mean, does he not think that the people of his constituency, he wants to be the MP for that constituency in particular? What I mean, I don't know why he's scared of doing that. I mean, it could be obviously another reason being is that he might not want to be front and centre of what's happening again south of the border and the bigger stage of what's happening with Labour in general. But I think that it's an absolute eyesore to democracy. I mean, if he's wanting to be their MP and represent that constituency, obviously, to represent that constituency, I think that first and foremost he should stand up and say what he stands for and give the people the respect that they deserve and going out and saying, look, this is me, this is my values, this is what I stand for. But again, he doesn't seem to be doing that. So I think it's just a disgrace, to be honest, John.
But what if the reality is he doesn't stand for anything, like Keir Starmer?
Well, that's it. I mean, again, I've got every good faith within the people of that constituency to obviously to vote in the right, well, to choose to think obviously what's obviously right for them and what's right for the country. So, but I think that yeah, if for example that was the case that he did get voted in, and as I said, it's not good for democracy, and it's certainly not good for us. But with the less people that we have, like Starmer, for example, then the better. I mean, I could tell you countless politicians that are like that. I mean, Jackie Bailey's one of them, for example. She's another waste of space, in my opinion, completely. And I think that by aligning herself to the policies of Keir Starmer, like the Sarwar has, for example, one minute he was going to save Grangemouth, and then the next minute he's not going to save Grangemouth, and then you get the Chancellor of the Exchequer coming up, obviously Labour as well, and she was in Scotland last week, and she was interviewed by Colin Mackay. Colin Mackay asked her a simple question about Scotland, and then she came out with three different towns in industries south of the border. When he was basically asking her what about Scotland's stake in this, and she basically was clueless to the cameras, didn't answer his question, and that just seems to be where Labour is just now. So again, if you're asking originally the question, what if that guy's much of the same as what Keir Starmer is, then I'll tell you something. I think people in that constituency right across Scotland seriously have to do a lot of thinking.
Well, you're a progressive, articulate sort of guy, Chris. Would you ever run for politics?
Well, the thing is, John, many people have asked me, would I do that? It's something that has crossed my mind. Yes, I just think that the now is really not my specific time for that. I think that my main goal is to be in the background, obviously, fighting Scottish independence corner from the back stages at the moment, and doing what I can. But it's not something, John, I'm not saying in the future that I might do.
Never say never, never say ever.
Never
Always.
say never.
This has been great. Thanks, Chris. I should have warned you at the beginning that the hour goes very quickly.
Yep, it does. It's fluid. Yep,
So
it
I
has.
thank you most sincerely, and I wish you every success for Saturday. Keep us
Yep,
posted, please, on how it
I will do
develops.
it. Sail for Freedom at from Troon to Brodick, 10:30 is the first sailing. Bring a saltire flag. We'll be meeting very friendly people. As I said, it's going to be a great day, a great event. So if anybody can just please share it out their social media pass, that would be great.
Don't miss it. I want to end with one quick remark, if I may. It's this. In addition, obviously, thanking Chris, it's this. I would strongly really appreciate you supporting Independence Live. You'll find the details available all over the place. And this is what I'd like to put a deal to you. Every single person tonight watching and listening to the show if you're ever disposed to cancel your television license because of the rather atrocious material you see on BBC Scotland News, and if you do get round to doing that, could I strongly urge you to take that amount of money, because you've already dedicated it at some point, and ship it off to independencelive.net/crowdfunder, and it will go to a very good home. So it'll leave a very poor home and it would end up in a very good home. It's all down to you. If you're thinking about cancelling your television license, do that, but transfer the funds to Kevin and the rest of the fine team. So I need to close down because we're through with our hour and a bit more. Big thank you to Chris and a big thank you to all of you for watching and listening tonight. And I look forward to seeing you all next week at 7 o'clock. In the meantime, stay safe and take care. Good night.
Right.